In this video, we're going to talk about the feudal system. Now, the feudal system develops because of all the invaders, like the Vikings, the Magyars, and the Muslims that started invading Western Europe during the Middle Ages. Now, the kings need to develop this new system in order to help defend themselves. And the feudal system is a political and social system based on granting land in exchange for loyalty, military assistance, and other services. Now, it's important that you make note that this is a political and social system because it's going to be different from the manor system, which we will talk about in a little bit. Why did they need a new system? Well, they need that new system to help protect themselves from invaders. Now, the feudal system is also a government based on obligation between the lord and the vassal. And this creates a very specific social class during the Middle Ages in these independent kingdoms that have developed after the fall of Rome. This is what the social class pyramid would look like. At the top you have the king. He has complete control of the feudal system, and he owned all the land in the kingdom, but he then granted some of his land to the people he wanted to, and in return they would give him certain things. So the people that the king gave his land to were known as nobles and lords. Now the king gave them their land, and this land eventually becomes known as the manor. They had complete control of their land. They could establish their own laws, could raise their own taxes. They had all control of the land that was given to them by the king. Now, in return, the nobles had to provide the king with soldiers, money, and a place to stay when visiting. So if the king needed protection, so if the king was about to be attacked, it was the nobles' duty to send soldiers to help protect the king. Now, the soldiers that the nobles or the lords sent were known as knights. Now, these knights were, their main job and only job was to learn how to fight and train to be fighters. They had to provide their military service, and so through all of this training that they did, they become excellent fighters. Well, in order to keep them from trying to overthrow the lord or the king, they had to take an oath of loyalty, and in that oath they pretty much declared that they would remain loyal and faithful to their lord. And so in other words, they would not try and overthrow them. Now the knights also had to give money on special occasions to the lord as well. Now here's some terms that come into play during the Middle Ages in the feudal system. A fief. Knights would be given land for their service. So a fief is a piece of land that is given. A vassal is a person who accepts a fief. Or in other words, a vassal is somebody who accepts or takes land given by the lord or the king. Now, a person can be both a lord and a vassal if the vassal chooses to give pieces of land to other vassals. Now, this can be confusing, but if you think of it like this, so the king gives a lord a piece of his land, so that lord would be a vassal to the king, so then if the lord gives some of the land that is given to him away, then whoever he gives his land away to, that person would then become a vassal to the lord. So the knights were vassals to their lords. Now on your note sheet you will see on the back the manorial system. Now the manorial system is an economic system that was built around large estates called manors. So if you remember back, the feudal system was a political and social system, based around government and social class. The manor system or the manorial system was solely economical. And so the lords were the ones who lived on the manors. And so these manors are solely economical, meaning they want to be self-sufficient. They want to be able to produce everything that they need to in order to be successful and survive. They don't want to have to depend on anybody else to get the things that they need. And so these manors were generally owned by wealthy lords or knights, and they were very large estates or large houses. So an example we like to use is if you've ever been to the Biltmore House in Asheville. Okay, that is a very large house, a very large estate. That would be similar or comparison to a medieval manor. And at the bottom of our social class, we have peasants and serfs. Now, peasants farmed the manor fields in exchange for protection and land. Now, peasants, they are given land by the knights, okay, and they own their land, and so they can come and go as they please. But if you think back, remember, the Middle Ages aren't an easy place to live in. Okay, they need protection. The knights are there to give them protection, okay, and so they want to have that sense of community and sense of security as well. Right? And so the peasants stayed on the land, they farmed the land, okay, in exchange for paying taxes and giving the knights some of their food that they've grown, okay, in return for having that piece of land to call their own and protection from the knights. Serfs, however, they did not own their land. Okay, they owed a service to their lord, to their knight. Okay, so peasants and serfs are not the same. Serfs were workers who were tied to the land, meaning that they owed some type of debt, usually a labor debt, to their lord. They were not slaves. They could not be sold. Okay, they just owed a debt, and they had to repay that debt. If you were born a serf, then you were more likely going to always be a serf. Now, life on the manor. In the manor system, okay, we see the development of new agricultural technologies, one being the three-field crop system. Okay, what this system did is it improved the soil, and you'll learn more about the three-field crop system when we look at the agricultural revolution video. Also on the manor, you had a fortified manor house for the noble family. This is where the noble family or the knight's family lived. Very large estate, remember, comparison to the Biltmore house. You also had a village. This is where the peasants and the serfs lived. And in this village, you had everything that they needed to be or to survive. So you had your blacksmith shop, you had your mill, you had your church, you had your carpenter. Everything that they needed in order to survive, they had in that village. Because each manor wanted to be self-sufficient. It included church, mill, blacksmith, anything that they needed, baker, clothes maker, shoemaker. They had all of those things in the village. Now, daily life in the Middle Ages. We're going to look at life in the castle versus life in the village. Now, the kings are the ones who lived in the castle. Castle is obviously going to be a little bit bigger than the manor houses, but it's kind of similar to the manor houses that the lords and the knights lived in. Castles, if you think about medieval times and the big stone castles, they're built for defense. There's very few windows in the castle because they're solely built for defense. They want to keep people out. They don't want to allow people in. They're there to help protect the family. Remember, they're wanting to protect themselves from invaders. Invaders didn't have siege weapons. Remember, like they didn't have trebuchets or catapults or anything to tear down the castles with, so they could not get in. And so this helped protect them from invaders. Castles were shared space, so when the invaders came, okay, all the people of the villages surrounding them would come into the castle and wait out the attack. And there were very few private rooms. Only the private rooms there really were for the royal family. In the village, you had 1 or 2 bedroom cottages. Remember, these are where the peasants and the serfs lived. They weren't that very nice of houses. They had dirt floors, very small windows, very few pieces of furniture. Any piece of furniture that was there, then the family probably had to build it themselves because they had long hours of work and they had very little time to make furniture for themselves. Either way, life was not easy in the Middle Ages and most people died young. And so some of the main things that we need to remember from this video is that the feudal system was a political and social system. Okay, so it set up the government and made the specific social class, and the manor system or the manorial system was solely economical.